Good morning, Digit fam! Adam Dowd here, rounding out another week of tech and geekery, and it has been a long one. Let the microdosing begin. But first, it is May 17th, 2019, and this is your Digit Daily. Microsoft and Sony have been rivals in the gaming world since, probably since the Red Sox and the Yankees. But now they've decided to work together. So let's recap. Google and Amazon are working together, Apple and Qualcomm are working together, although Qualcomm totally has apples by the cojones, but still working together. Samsung and Huawei are working together, and now Sony and Microsoft are working together. It's getting weird out there, folks. But at least we know the reasoning behind this relationship. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Because Microsoft and Sony both have a couple of enemies that are coming at them hard. Those enemies, the aforementioned Google and Amazon. First, the agreement. Microsoft and Amazon are partnering to develop, quote, future cloud solutions in Microsoft Azure to support their respective game and content streaming services. They'll also be working on semiconductors and AI technologies, and all of this sounds nice, but let's take a look at the opposition here. Amazon and Google are juggernauts that could rip either Microsoft or Sony in half like Deadpool, and they both have recently been looking at cutting in on the gaming turf. Google recently launched Stadia, top-tier games and a web browser, and Amazon has AWS, which is a gigantic cloud service that offers every cloud service you could possibly want, including VR and gaming. With gaming seemingly moving more and more to the cloud, consoles may become a thing of the past in a not-too-distant future, which should scare the crap out of Microsoft and Sony, whose primary foot in the gaming door is the console. Add to that Sony's other major competitor, the Nintendo Switch, which has already outsold the PlayStation 4 in Japan despite the PlayStation being out 3 years earlier. So Microsoft and Sony are circling the wagons and pooling resources, and what will all this end up being? Well, it's anyone's guess at this point. It could be a ho-hum expansion of cloud gaming services using Microsoft Azure. It could be a brand new gaming service. It's way too soon to tell. But if these two are burying the hatchet to work together, world peace may not be that unattainable after all. Meanwhile, over in the phone department, the Asus ZenFone 6 is a neat little phone coming to market with top-tier specs and a camera and price that you'll flip over. The ZenFone 6 has a 48 megapixel and 13 megapixel dual camera setup that flips over to become a selfie cam. It's not new for sure, but what's cool, or gimmicky, it's too soon to tell, about this camera is that you can video the whole process of the camera flipping, turning into a sort of panoramic photo of sorts. Plus, at a $500 price point with these top-tier specs, this phone could potentially fill a void left behind by OnePlus with the introduction of the OnePlus 7 Pro earlier this week. Other notable features, a Snapdragon 855 chipset, 8GB of RAM, 256GB of onboard storage, and a 5,000 mAh battery. All that plus basically a stock Android software build, and this is a compelling piece of hardware. Move over, OnePlus. There may be a new flagship killer in town. And speaking of new sheriffs in town, let's head on over into the roundup! Remember that ban on Huawei that came down yesterday? Well, it turns out Huawei was able to read the room and prepared for such an event by stockpiling components from US manufacturers just in case this actually happened. Well, it actually did happen, and Huawei has about a year's worth of parts saved up. Well played, Huawei. Well played. NASA wants to be on the moon in 5 years, and it has hired on 11 different companies to make that happen. Everyone from SpaceX to Blue Origin, Northrop Grumman, and more are all getting a piece of this moon pie. It's basically a who's who in space development, and all these companies will research and or build their own pieces until NASA puts them all together and takes the credit, which is just a government thing to do. Arguably, one of Google's flashiest announcements at Google I/O was its live transcribe function that adds subtitles to virtually any video content for those who are hard of hearing or just watching movies at meetings like the jerks that they are. Well, now the technology can detect ambient sounds like dogs barking, people clapping, cars driving by, and yes, even farts. Though, according to Android's Twitter account, they've had a tough time acquiring a dataset. Google, you are welcome to swing by my place after a night at Chipotle you'll get your data. Researchers at the University of Zurich have developed a drone with real-time dodging capabilities. A drone can track objects thrown at it and perform evasive maneuvers, which is really cool and would have really useful real-world applications. I don't really have a joke here, except to mention that this story and its dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge headline led me down a dodgeball YouTube rabbit hole that I did not have time for this morning, but it was still awesome. Verizon shared a video of a Samsung Galaxy S10 5G getting gigabit download speeds yesterday, and a gaggle of reporters also showed up in Chicago to test out the network. Results were much more positive than they were a few weeks back when I tried it, which is why I'm going to go try it again next week with the new hardware. Stay tuned for my full report. And speaking of 5G speeds, AT&T CEO Randall Stephenson talked about pricing plans for 5G in the coming years and suggested that a price model similar to wired cable plans might be in order. Pay for the higher speeds. John Callahan at Android Authority breaks down several reasons why that's a bad idea and probably won't work too well, citing reasons like wireless data doesn't work like wired data and the fact that this could hamper development of 5G applications. I'd just rather not see artificial limits imposed on technology because of a price point in the marketing department, but hey, maybe that's just me. And finally, watching streaming videos on services like Netflix and Amazon may just save your children from watching up to 400 hours of commercials per year. Now, putting aside the fact that that's a crap load of TV in and of itself, and the fact that the number for my kids is probably much higher, streaming services could put a hamper on one of advertising's greatest evils, marketing children. If you're up for a rabbit hole, I recommend doing research on the insidiousness of advertising to children and how it's more effective than advertising to adults who actually pay the bill. It's a bit frightening, so yes, kids, stay on Netflix all day if you want. Suck it, advertisers. So that is going to do it for today's Digit Daily. If you'd like to learn more about any of these stories, check out the links in the show notes and subscribe to our daily newsletter on Digit.com. And if you like what you heard, subscribe, leave a review, and don't forget to tell your friends about DigitDailyPod.com. Once again, I'm Adam Dowd, Dead Technology on Twitter, and we'll talk again on Monday.